It was November 2025. Starbucks had a very important day called Red Cup Day. This was the busiest day of the year for the company. But on this day, many coffee shops were quiet. Thousands of workers, called baristas, did not come to work. They walked out of their stores. This caused a lot of chaos and surprise for many customers. This big action was called the Red Cup Rebellion. Instead of making drinks, baristas stood outside. They held signs. They chanted for their rights. They were on strike in many cities. They wanted fair pay and good working conditions. This made a strong picture across the country, workers standing up to a very big company. This event showed a clear fight. A new generation of workers was standing against Starbucks, a global coffee giant. Starbucks is known around the world. It often talks about being good to its employees, but now it was facing a historic labor war. This war showed a big problem between workers and a powerful company. How did this happen? How did a company famous for its modern image get into such a big fight with its own workers? What does this important conflict tell us about how people will work in America in the future? These questions were on many people's minds. This big explosion of anger was not sudden. It did not just happen overnight. It was the result of something that began slowly, like a small fire that gets bigger over time. This long fuse was lit years before, not in a big city, but in one simple, normal coffee shop. That small store held the start of this big story. 2. A small start. 4 years before Red Cup Day, in December 2021, a different kind of quiet rebellion began. It was in Buffalo, New York, at a Starbucks store on Elmwood Avenue. The people who worked there, called baristas, faced many problems every day. They often worked long hours, but there were never enough staff members. This meant they were always busy and stressed, trying to serve many customers quickly. Their work schedules changed all the time. Sometimes they would work mornings, then evenings, making it very hard to plan for school, another job, or family. They also felt their pay was not enough for the hard work they did. Most importantly, they felt a lack of basic respect from the company they worked for. They wanted to be heard. So, a small group of these workers decided to do something new and brave. They decided to vote to form a union. This was a very big deal. Starbucks had fought hard against unions for many, many years. For decades, since 1987, no Starbucks store in the U.S. had successfully formed a union. The company was known for its strong efforts to stop workers from organizing. Why was this time different? What made the workers in Buffalo believe they could win, when so many others before them had not? It took great courage for them to stand up. They knew the company was powerful. The vote was close, but the workers in Buffalo won. It was just one small store, but their victory was huge. It broke a long history of no unions at Starbucks. News of this win quickly traveled beyond Buffalo. Other Starbucks workers in different cities across the country heard about what happened on Elmwood Avenue. They started to think, maybe we can do this too. The idea of a union began to spread like a small growing fire. But Starbucks, a very large global company, saw this fire beginning. They did not want it to grow any bigger. The company quickly started to make plans to stop this new union movement before it could truly begin. They prepared for a big fight. 3. The big company's plan. Starbucks did not like the union win in Buffalo. The big company had a long history of stopping workers from forming unions. For many years, Starbucks stores in the United States did not have unions. When workers tried to organize before, the company found ways to stop them. After the Buffalo vote, Starbucks quickly began to fight against the new union movement. They wanted to stop it from growing and spreading to other stores across the country. Starbucks used many ways to fight the unions. Some people called these actions union busting. The company fired many workers who wanted to join a union. A clear example was in Memphis, Tennessee. 7 workers there were fired after they spoke out for the union and tried to organize their store. People called them the Memphis 7. An official labor judge later ruled that Starbucks fired them illegally. This showed how far the company would go to stop workers from organizing. Official bodies also found other problems. In 2023, a judge said Starbucks had done widespread misconduct in Buffalo. They had not acted fairly. Also, Starbucks announced wage increases and new benefits. But these good things were only for stores that did not have a union. Stores that had voted to unionize did not get these benefits. This was a clear way to make workers think twice about joining a union. It made them wonder if it was better to stay without a union to get better pay and benefits. This was a very big fight. It was like a small group of young workers trying to stand against a giant lot of pressure on its employees. The company hoped that this pressure would make the union movement disappear. They wanted to send a message to all their workers that forming a union would be difficult and might not bring good results. Starbucks wanted to scare workers and make the union movement stop. They thought their aggressive plans would work. But even with all these strong plans and the great power of the company, something else happened. The idea of forming a union kept spreading. More and more Starbucks stores voted to unionize, one after another. Winning these votes was a big step and a victory for the workers. But getting Starbucks to sit down and agree to a fair contract, one that truly changed things, was a completely different fight. This was a new and harder war for the workers, one where votes were only the beginning. 4. Talks fail. After the union won many votes, the next step was to get a fair contract. Formal talks between Starbucks and the union, Starbucks Workers United, began in February 2024. For almost 1.5 years, both sides met to discuss a new agreement. They made some progress. They agreed on about 90% of the contract. These were things like how stores would run and rules for work. But the most important parts for the workers were still not agreed upon. These were money, healthcare, and having enough people to work in stores. Workers needed stable hours and higher wages. They also wanted better staffing so they would not be so stressed. In April 2024, Starbucks made an offer. The company said workers would get at least a 2% pay raise each year. But the union leaders and workers thought this was not enough. They said no to the offer. Talks continued through the spring and summer, but it was slow and hard. Both Starbucks and the union said the other side was not trying to reach a real deal. This created a lot of tension. Workers felt upset and betrayed as talks went nowhere. By September 2024, the discussions had stopped. Starbucks did not offer any new ideas about money for the workers. As the situation got worse, the union started to file many complaints. They said Starbucks was breaking labor laws. They claimed the company changed rules without asking workers and fired people who supported the union. By mid-2025, more than 100 such complaints were filed. With no agreement in sight and the very busy holiday season coming, union leaders knew they had to do something big. They needed to show Starbucks how serious they were. In early November 2025, the workers held a vote. A large number, 92%, voted to start an open-ended strike. This meant the strike would not have a set end date. They decided to strike on Red Cup Day, November 13, 2025. This was one of the busiest days for Starbucks, and the union hoped it would make the company listen. 5. The big strike begins. On November 13, 2025, the day arrived. It was Red Cup Day, a very busy day for Starbucks. But this year, many baristas did not go to work. Instead, they stood outside their stores. In many cities across America, workers gathered on picket lines. They held signs and chanted, their voices loud in the cold morning air. This was the big strike's beginning. More than 1,000 unionized baristas from 65 stores walked out. This began the longest strike in Starbucks history. They called it the Red Cup Rebellion. These workers planned to strike for a long time, not just one day. 92% of them had voted for an open-ended strike. This meant they would stay out until they got a fair contract. Their strong will was clear to all. The strike grew quickly across the country. Just 1 week later, by November 20, the number of striking stores went from 65 to 95. Soon after, by Black Friday, November 28th, the strike had spread even more. 120 stores in 85 cities now had baristas on strike. The workers showed great energy and stayed united. They demanded better pay, more stable work hours, and respect from the company. Starbucks, the company, quickly gave its own message about the strike. They said the walkout had little effect on their business. The company announced that 99% of its stores across the U.S. were still open. They even claimed that Red Cup Day 2025 had the most sales ever despite the strike. Starbucks kept stores running by using other employees, managers, and temporary workers. The company wanted to show that the strike was not causing big problems. But for the striking baristas who gave up their pay to protest, this was a very serious moment. They wondered if their brave actions were truly making a difference against such a powerful company. Was this rebellion only a symbol? Or was the union's real power still waiting to be shown in a new, stronger way? The future of their difficult fight was not clear, but their commitment was firm. 6. Getting help from people. The fight was not only happening outside Starbucks stores. Workers knew they needed more help. They decided to ask the public and many different people for support. This battle was fought with words and public opinion. The union started a smart plan to gain public support. They launched a campaign called Stop Buying Starbucks. The idea was simple. If customers stopped buying coffee, Starbucks would feel pressure. On December 15, 2025, the union asked people to join a Stop Buying Starbucks Day of Action. Supporters stood outside non-union Starbucks stores, giving out flyers. They asked customers not to buy drinks until workers got a fair contract. The union reported almost 400 such actions nationwide, showing wide support. The strike became a big issue for politicians. Many important people spoke up. In November 2025, 26 U.S. senators and 82 U.S. representatives sent letters to Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol. They asked the company to agree to a fair contract. By December 17th, more than 180 local and state officials, including the Washington State Attorney General, also wrote to the CEO. Even in Seattle, Starbucks' home city, leaders supported the workers.
Other large groups also helped the union. In December, striking workers held events with members from the SAG-AFTRA union, the AFL-CIO, and the NAACP. Teachers also joined rallies. On December 18th, many workers went to Starbucks headquarters in Seattle to protest directly. The workers were not alone. They were building a strong group of allies. This group was much bigger than just the baristas, including customers, politicians, and other unions. However, strong public support did not solve all problems. Cheering for the workers was good, but it did not pay their bills. As the strike continued into December, money became a big worry. Could they keep striking long enough to win if they had no income? This was a difficult question. 7. Why this matters. The strike at Starbucks stores is about more than just coffee. It is a big sign of changes happening in how people work across America. This fight is part of a larger story, where workers are asking for more from big companies. Many people believe this is one of the most important worker movements in many years. Workers at other large companies, like Amazon and Apple, have also started to organize and ask for better working conditions. This shows that the Starbucks rebellion is not alone. It is a part of a wider movement. These workers want fair wages, steady hours, and respect in their jobs. They feel that their work is important and they should be treated well. The world has changed a lot recently.
The global health crisis, known as the pandemic, made many people think differently about their jobs. They saw that their work was essential, but sometimes their pay and treatment were not fair. Prices for things like food and housing have also gone up a lot. This inflation means that workers need more money to live. Also, younger workers today have new ideas about what a good job means. They want a better balance between work and life, and they want their voices to be heard. All these things together are fueling a new wave of action by workers. The Starbucks strike is a clear example of this. It shows how people, especially young people, are ready to stand up for their rights. The outcome of this strike is very important. It will send a message to many other workers and companies. It will show if collective action can truly make a difference for workers. So what happens next will have a big impact. Will this strike be a success story, proving that workers can win when they act together? Or will it be a warning, showing how powerful big companies still are? The answer will help shape the future of work for many people. 8. What happens next? This final chapter looks back at the Red Cup Rebellion. It was a long journey, starting from a small coffee shop in Buffalo, New York. That small start grew into a big strike, with thousands of baristas across the country standing together. This showed great power from the workers. It became a nationwide protest, making history for Starbucks. For Starbucks, the strike brought many challenges. The company said its sales were still high, even during the strike. But many customers chose not to buy Starbucks coffee to support the striking workers.
This caused the company to think deeply about its public image and how people see it. The Red Cup Rebellion also made a big mark on the American labor movement. It showed that even large companies can face strong worker action. Young workers and people in service jobs learned they could fight for better conditions, higher pay, and more respect. It was a test for many new union efforts. This strike might finish with a contract soon, or it might take more time, but the main questions it raised will stay for a long time. These are questions about how big companies should act, if workers get paid fairly for their hard work, and if everyone has dignity in their job. The relationship between Starbucks and its employees has changed forever. Workers now know their voice can be heard, and their collective action has power. This movement has made everyone think about the future of work in America. What do you think will be the most important change for workers after this Red Cup Rebellion?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.